check. There we go. Hey, so glad you guys are here. Couple things real quick. If you're here for the first time, I haven't been for a while, man, we're so glad that you're here. And we're in a new series called Don't Check That Light. We're going to be in Luke chapter several weeks. And the one thing that I want you to kind of understand is when we're talking about Jesus told several stories. And as he told these stories, he basically was giving us some warnings. But we were talking about all these warnings aren't stuff that you typically would hear, like the big sins. They're actually kind of smaller things. But for us, it was like, if you think about in your car, we get these check engine lights. And if we're honest, some of us here, if you're like my wife and I, she's here, we'll tell you, we're just like, if you ignore it long enough, then it'll just go away, right? Some of you do that. Some of you probably freak out. You're like, I'm immediately going to the mechanic. I got to get this fixed. But we were thinking, even though they're small warning lights, if you don't deal with it, it's going to get a lot worse. And today we're going to talk about this concept of more. Like, it's just this thing that Jesus talked about. And basically for all of us here, I think if most people, we push them, would be like, no, it's good to have drive. I want my kids to have drive. I want my kids to be competitive. Those of you watching online, man, we're glad you're joining us. It's kind of the same thing. But as we talk about this concept of more in Luke 12, I read a fascinating poll they did, and this has been a few years back. But they asked a lot of people, what would you do for $5 million? Now, what I want to do is I ask you these questions. I just want you to yell, yeah, if you would do this for $5 million. If you're online, just give us the thumbs up each time, and everybody kind of play along. It's way more fun when you play along than it is if you just sit there kind of quietly, okay? So I want you to think about for $5 million. But let me ask you a question before we get started. Be honest. How many of you, if I gave you $5 million today, you'd say it would make my life better? Be honest. How many, right? Some of you right now are like, I haven't had power in a week, right? I would be in Florida or Cuba or somewhere right now. I wouldn't, yeah. So, but here's what they said. So for $5 million, 54% of the people said they would listen to country music for the rest of their life. Who? Yeah. The rest of your life, no other music. Oh, that might be the hardest one for me. I can't do it. Toby Keith, I can't. I'll be poor the rest of my life. It's not worth it. 42% said they would have all their teeth removed completely. I may, okay, a couple people said yeah, right? Buy dentures if you have to. You might look stupid, but you're going to be rich, right? Okay, fair enough. This one was kind of sad. This is a true study, too. I'm not making this up. 50% of the people said they'd allow one random person they didn't know to die. Like somewhere in the world, someone just has to die, so I get the $5 million. Anybody say yeah? Even though you're kind of thinking it, you don't want to say it right now. You're like, oh, I would do it, but I'm not going to verbally say, yeah, let's do that, right? Those of you online are like, okay, maybe hold that thumbs. It's horrible. Okay, and this is one's crazy to me. And this was lower than letting someone die. To me, country music and someone dying would probably be about the same to me. It's like, this is a big sacrifice. But this one, 24% of the people said they would live in solitude for 20 straight years. Never be around anybody. I heard an absolutely. You got the introverts like, get me away, I don't want to be near. Absolutely. Anyone else? 20? Yay? 20 years? Some of you are like, 20 years away from my husband, my kids? Yes, absolutely. I'll do that for free. Okay. Well, anyways, here's the idea. If we're honest, most of us, and I want to say all of us, but there might be some anomaly somewhere. Most of us truly believe that more is always better. It's the American way. It's the American dream. But Jesus says, hold on a second. More maybe isn't always better. And what we have is this idea where we need more. We need to consume more. I want to have more. I want to spend more. And he gives us a warning light today. And what's fascinating, man, just one real quick, I won't bore you with studies. This one was done, a Gallup poll, years back. But they took people who made $25,000. And they said, okay, you're making $25,000 total in your home. What would, really good be for you? What's enough that you would just be, man, we would be comfortable? And those people said on average about $75,000. Okay, so $75,000 8 years ago must have been the magic number, right? Problem was, they went to people who made $75,000 and they said, okay, what's the magic number for you? And they said, about $120,000. We would be comfortable if we could just make $125,000. Bottom line is they kept going to each group that they would say the majority would kind of go with, and they kept saying about $50,000 or $100,000 more. So they finally get to people that are millionaires, $1 to $2 million. And they said, when would you feel comfortable? And almost the majority of this group of people said if we had over $5 million in assets, we would feel like we were safe and comfortable. So don't you feel sorry for the poor jokers with just $1 million worth of assets? Like, you losers, right? What's my point with that? The bottom line is, and those of you who are a little bit older and the kind of experienced life, you know this, the line constantly moves. When my wife and I were first married, I remember, the true story, we didn't even know where we were going to live. We were getting married in March. And we were talking to her parents, and they said, listen, one of her relatives actually had a trailer, but the problem is that there's been cats that's been living in it. It's been abandoned for like 2 years. We went to visit the trailer, and we both walked in, and we're like, this is great, right? It smelled awful, but we're like, we're going to live on love. Now, those of you who have been married for a while know you don't live on love, do you? Especially when you smell cat urine every day. It's like, that's not working. But I was thinking back then, if you had told us, if you guys as a family can make $50,000, oh, we're rich, right? As a couple, as a total family income, $50,000. But then you get older, now you've got kids in high school, you're like, well, that's not that much money, right? The line constantly moves. But we buy into this lie that more is better. That's what Jesus addressed today. So in Luke chapter 12, we're going to start in verse 15. This is how Jesus dealt with this warning light. Then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. And this is such an amazing verse. Your life does not consist in an abundance of your possessions. If you don't get anything else today, if you take a nap, that's fine. But I want you just to really kind of maybe start wrestling with this. Your life does not consist in the things that you gather or get, the things that you possess. And he told him this parable. He said, the ground of a rich man yielded an abundant harvest. So this farmer, things are going really well. The farmer thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. There I'll store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, be merry. AKA the American dream. Get more. Why? So you can be safer, so you can relax, so you can have a better retirement. And some of you are like, man, I'm not picking on you, okay? I'm not. Because we're going to find out here in a second, not that this part isn't evil, but here's the catch. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then you will get what you prepared for yourself. This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. So as I was thinking about this, and I know some of you are like, Trent, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a materialistic person. And some of you truly aren't. You really don't care. I know people in this church specifically, even people who have quite a bit, way more than me, who I truly believe it doesn't control them. They don't care about it. They're just like, oh, if you need it, take it. Like, that's it. But the bottom line is, I don't care who we are, all of us still struggle with this more concept in some area. For you, it might be, a lot of you in here, it might be, if I just had a little more money. Man, if I could just get a little more money in a raise, man, things would be so much better. But for some of you, it might not be material stuff. Maybe if I could just find a husband. But some of you are sitting in here looking over and you're like, if I could just find a different husband, right? I struck out the first time. I'm kind of stuck with this guy. No one told me he would lose the hair here and it would gain. I'm learning that. Now I'm 41, right? It's like, I didn't know hair could grow different places now. Like, in your ear, it's weird, right? It's not great. But some of you, it can be just so many different kind of concepts. I just wish we had kids. I just wish we had more kids. And you see one of the moms walking in with 32 of them, and you're like, never mind, I'm okay, right? And her hair's messed up. It's that bottom. We always think more is better, whatever's out there. So real quick this morning, I want to give you 3 more warning lights. Okay? And I really do want to challenge you this morning. If you don't get anything else, and I was thinking, we have several like high school and kind of young college people in here this morning. Man, we're so pumped you guys are here. I was thinking, this really would be life-changing if you would take this to heart. For you guys. I mean, if you would really just evaluate your own hearts. All of us need to do it. But I think you could save yourself so much strain and agony if you said, okay, here's God's truth. What am I going to do about it? What's the first more warning light? Here it is. It's complaining more. You see, the way I know that my heart is ungrateful to God is because I find myself complaining. And maybe not just about what I don't have, but just complaining in general. If you have an attitude that is literally ungrateful, then what that tells me is you are ultimately saying, God, I don't feel like you're giving me what I deserve. You see, it still goes back to a spiritual concept here. The fact that I'm ungrateful means I'm upset with God because I think I deserve more from him, and he's not meeting my demands. But you're still ungrateful. You know why you complain? Because you're ungrateful. No, Trent, you don't understand. It's just because of the stuff I'm going through. No, it's not. We're all going through stuff. It's the choice we make. Are we going to complain or not? Now, here's the dangerous thing. I would challenge some of you. I did this with my kids this week. I would challenge you with your spouse or your children or people close to you at work. I would say this. Do you think I'm a complainer? Because here's the thing about most complainers I know. They don't think they're complainers, right? They think that's just how everybody operates. But then when you get outside of that, people are like, no, you actually do kind of complain a lot, right? That shows ungratefulness in my heart. Paul said this in 1 Thessalonians. He said, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances. For this is God's will. Give thanks in all things. Now, I thought, this has been so crazy to me, and you guys will agree to this. Obviously, a lot of you in this room still maybe don't have power. You don't have electric. You haven't taken a shower in days, and you're like, we can't tell. We can tell. We know. That's why you're sitting over by yourself somewhere, right? No. But with all that going on, here's the craziest thing to me. I started texting. We actually had some relatives stay with us because they didn't have power. So I'm texting different people in my family, in our church, people I have contacts with. Hey, I know you're out in the country. Do you have power? What's going on? Do you have water? Anything we can do to help? You know, just standard stuff that we all do. We don't mean it, but we are being nice and saying, hey, you know, come on in. But here's the bottom line with that. About the last 2 days, I start getting all these text messages coming in, and they're literally in all caps, and it says, we have power, and like triple exclamation points. We now have warm water, exclamation point. And as I started reading those, I thought, you know what? I would think I'm a pretty grateful person, but it hit me, I'm not. I have never once woke up and grabbed John and said, look at me, baby, look at me. What? It's the greatest day in the world. Why? We have power. We have running water, right? But you guys know this, especially some of you right now, when that gets taken away, you don't realize how blessed we are with the smallest of things. So grateful. Someone challenge you. Do you have a complaining heart? Do you find yourself complaining a lot? It might be God speaking to you this morning saying, you know why? Because you're ungrateful and you don't realize truly how good, because you're just constantly wanting more. The second one, and this is, I don't think I'm much of a complainer, but this one is so bad for me, comparing more. You see, my heart's still saying the same thing. It's saying, God, I don't feel it's right because it's like you're giving them that good stuff, but I want it. And for me, I'm not super materialistic, but I'll tell you this, I'm competitive. I'm super competitive, right? And I've told you the story before when John and I were first dating, where we were at Giovanni's in Chesapeake. We're sitting there, and there's this little tiny girl playing air hockey in red cowboy boots. She's like 6 years old. And she has an air hockey table by herself. There's no puck, nothing. And she's just like hitting against the thing. And John said, I'm going to play with her. And we're dating, mind you. And I remember I walked over there and put like 2 quarters in. The puck comes out, and I start playing with her. And I looked over at my wife, and she wasn't my wife at that point. And you could tell she was like, I'm marrying that stud. I am. I mean, you think, isn't that great? Like literally a young guy who's like being nice to this little girl, playing a game with her. And then it turned drastically bad. Because I beat her 7-0 in like 3 seconds. And I'm taunting her, and she's crying. And I went back over to eat my pizza, and my wife said, you're sick. You know that? I was like, why? I won. Like, and I'm being serious. That's kind of me. But you know the bad part about someone who's competitive? You compare a lot. You're constantly looking at who you need to beat or who you need to be as good as or better. And I'm not saying it's wrong to be competitive, but you got to watch this because you'll find in your heart you're constantly comparing. One of the things I share with our team, and we all talk about this, and it's kind of my contribution. I always try to get back to them, and I always tell them this. Your strength in life, if you don't guard it, will also be your greatest weakness. And for me, I think one of my strengths is my wife will say, you know, you have drive. You don't have to really be told to do something. You just go do it. But what's the weakness of being overly competitive and driven? You're going to find yourself constantly looking, well, what are they doing? Why are their kids better than my kid? What can their kids beat my kids? In ball games, you lose your mind, right? All these things that still comes back to a heart issue. Why? Because I want more. I want more. I'm not content with what God's blessed me with. And then the last one real quick is counting more. You see, if we're honest, most of us here, we are so caught up in the temporary that we completely forget about what's eternal. And I know that sounds churchy, but it's true. If you're a follower of Jesus this morning, you are so caught up in what's temporary. That's why you're stressed. That's why you're worked up, because you're constantly chasing stuff that Jesus says is temporary. It's temporary. Let's go back to the key verse here. Jesus said, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in the abundance of your possessions or his possessions. Now, my wife and I started watching this show. I actually brought her in a little bit later on. Do not watch this with your kids. Don't watch it with your teenagers. I've been watching it like the edited version, by the way, so I'm good. But there's a show out called Yellowstone. Anyone heard of Yellowstone or watched Yellowstone, right? Well, I'll just give you real quick facts about this. One, it stars Kevin Costner, who's the worst actor ever in the history of the world. My wife and I almost got divorced over this. And I want to tell her, honey, it's not because, I've never called her honey in my life, but I say, John, it's not because you think he's a great actor, it's because you think he's hot for like a 60-year-old man. That's what it is, because he's a rancher and he has that cool talk. But I'm like, he's the worst actor in America. My mom gets mad at me. I'm like, you just think he's hot too, I don't care, right? He's terrible. He's the same character in every movie he's in. If you want to watch a rancher play golf, watch Tin Cup with Kevin Costner, okay? If you want to watch a Montana Rancher throw a baseball, watch Love of the Game, Kevin Costner. He's the same person in every movie. But anyways, I don't want to bash Kevin Costner. I would love if Kevin Costner saw this and then messaged me and said, I want you to see my home and my life compared to you, okay? You're a weirdo from South Point. No one cares. Okay, fair enough. But with that being said, here's the thing about Yellowstone. They're the ranchers, but here's what gets me. The whole show, there's constant conflict because they're trying to either get more or protect what they have. And as you watch the show, you're like, man, it's just so much trouble for this family. You think they have it made, they don't. But then I thought, what about us? What about all of us in this room? Is that not us too, though? We're constant climbing to get more, to grab more, to protect what we have. And Jesus said, according to him, that's what a fool does. No, Trent, you don't understand. I just want to get more. Why? So I can retire. Why? So I can just enjoy life. So I can eat, drink, and be merry. So that's the purpose of your whole life? Trent, you don't understand. My kids have to go to college. They have to get good grades in junior high and high school. Why? They have to do great on the ACT. Why? So they can get in a good college. I'm not bashing any of this stuff. I'm just saying this is our drive. Why? So they can get a good job and be married and be happy and retire and relax and eat and drink and be merry. According to Jesus, that's stupid. It's foolish. There's another option. There's a better way for this. So here's what I want you to understand today. And I think that's what Jesus is trying to say. If you are constantly seeking more, and here's the dangerous part of this, what you're ultimately saying in your heart is, Jesus, you are not enough. I like you, maybe even love you, but in my life to be happy, I need Jesus plus, and you can fill in whatever blank you need. And here's what I want you to hear today. If you don't get anything else, make sure you get this, okay? Jesus is not just enough. He's more than enough. He really is. He's more than enough. No, you don't understand, but yeah, we need Jesus plus we need. No, there's no Jesus plus here. It's Jesus, period. It's all we need to satisfy us. And that's part of our heart issue, is we're ultimately saying to God, God, to be satisfied, I need maybe Jesus plus whatever that thing is you're seeking more of. And to Jesus, that is foolish. It's being a fool. So here's your homework. And this might be, for some of you young people, this might be your homework 20 years from now. But at some point in your life, for most of you in here, God is going to bless you with more. And to you, I would say, congratulations. Truly. He might give you a better job. He might allow you to be more relaxed. He might give you more time. Okay, when he gives you more, congratulations, I want you to have that. But let me explain to you what a fool does with more. And it's from this story. A fool says, I want to get more and I want to spend more. If you give a fool more of anything, a fool says, thank you, because I want to get more and I want to spend more. That's their life. But if you want to be wise this morning, before we pray, I want you to hear this. Someone who's wise, according to Jesus, says, when you give me more, I get more so I can give more and I can serve more. If you live your life with those attitudes, I want to glorify God with my life, number one. And number two, I want to serve people and glorify. Who's the ultimate example of that? Jesus, who could have had anything he wanted, said, you know what? I'm going to come as a servant. Because every moment of Jesus' life was based on how can I glorify my Father and how can I serve those around me. And you know what? Of all the people who's lived a life that counts, Let me share with you, and I promise we're done. I want to share with you my favorite movie of all time. I'm not going to tell you the title yet, and as I go through, I'm going to see if you can kind of guess what movie it is. It's about this guy he's like a middle manager at kind of like this small company, and he's just kind of, I don't know, probably the guy like us makes 25, 50,000, 70, whatever, just kind of a standard guy. But he gets a raise, and it's like double his money. And the movie starts out with him getting this raise, and he goes home, and he buys a bigger TV, and they get a new couch. So fun. They redecorate their bathroom. Well, it fast forwards like 5 years, and he gets another raise, and they double his salary again. And now he buys a bigger home, and it shows him he's on a boat. You're like, oh man, this is so amazing. This is the best movie I've ever seen. Then he fast forward another 5 years. They double his salary again, and now he's literally bought this big house, and it's a gated community. No, it's not a movie because none of us will watch that. Because that's not exciting, right? I don't want to sit and just watch someone buy more stuff every day. But what if there's a movie playing in your life? Is that what it would be? Now let's talk about some great movies. What's one of the greatest movies ever made? Simple, Braveheart, right? Right? My wife's like, I love Braveheart because she thinks Mel Gibson looks good in that movie too. And I have to agree with her, right? Not too shabby. But I'll say this about that movie, seriously. What's the movie about? It's about a guy who because of a love of a woman, but in love of his nation, he's like, I will give my life for free. We watch that and we're inspired. Why? Because we see someone sacrifice. Here's my whole point with that. All of us in here are drawn when we see people serve and sacrifice. When you watch a YouTube video and it's a highlight, you're like, man, that moved me. Why? Because it's someone usually serving or sacrificing. No one sits and watches a YouTube clip of just people getting and buying and getting. We're not motivated by that. Because God built into you this desire that says, even though you want to chase more, more is actually when you say, okay, God, when you give me more, I'm going to give more, I'm going to serve more. And both of these are ultimately to glorify you. So here's what we're going to do today. When we pray, I'm going to ask you just really today, and I know for a lot of you it's like, Trent, we've been in the cold, we haven't had power, and we came to church. Don't we just get a star for the day? Right? Can't we just show up and leave and pat ourselves on the back for getting our family in church another weekend? And I don't mean this mean, but there's more to it than that. There's more to just showing up every week and listening to a 25-minute message and saying, okay, I did it for the week. Maybe Jesus today is saying, listen, I'm asking you to change your heart, which might equal you changing your whole lifestyle. But he promises you this. If you want to truly live a life that matters, a life that you are proud of at the end of the day, it'll always come back to, I want to honor God. And the best way I do that is by serving those around me. Doesn't sound as fun, but I promise you, it counts way more in the end. Because that's what wise people do. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much today for your word. I thank you for this story you tell us through your son. And as challenging as this moment is, and my fear, let me just say this, God, my fear for a lot of people sitting here, people watching online right now, is that we'll do exactly what we do almost every single week. We listen, we pay a little bit of attention, and we leave here and we go on our way and do the exact same thing we were doing the day before. But I pray that you would wake up some people right now, some people who are struggling, some people who are chasing more. And today I pray through your Spirit, you would just speak through their hearts and say, this is not the way. This is not wise. The goal of our life is not to accumulate more so we can spend more and keep getting more. The goal of you blessing us with more is so that we can give more and serve more. I pray you would change our hearts today. Father, I pray a specific prayer. No one else here, it doesn't matter, but just for me. And I would just like to say, I'm sorry. Sorry for all the things I chase. All the things I get worked up about. All the things I compare with others. That I know at the end of the day means nothing. I just need you. God, today we all realize we need you and you only. Because Jesus isn't enough. He's more than enough. Pray you'd help us today. Change our hearts, ultimately change our lives, but let us realize today Jesus plus nothing is enough for us. We ask these things in your Son's name. And amen.
Stand and sing together.